is Guy Benjamin, and I was born in St. John, east end of St. John. My parents came from Tortola. My great-great-great-three-greats-grandmother came from Peters Island and settled over on Newfound Bay, which is on the north and the east of St. John. My grandfather came from St. John originally, and that's on my mother's side, and that's the most that I can find out about him until he was married to my grandmother, who was the granddaughter of the Smith that came from Peters Island. I went to school at East End, and then I ended up by going to high school in St. Thomas, where I graduated in 1934. And I came back to St. John, and I taught for 15 years before I went to get my bachelor's at Howard. I came back and I taught for another 15 years, and then I went and got my master's at New York University. While I was in New York, I worked at several places. I worked at Macy's, which I've heard is gone in bankruptcy now. And I also worked at a post office. I worked at the Navy Department in Washington. And when I moved to New York to start on my master's, I worked at a post office there. I came back home and I worked here at Carl Bay, and I became superintendent of education for St. Thomas and St. John. After about 40 years, I retired. I went to New York, where I wrote my 2 books. The first one is Me and My Beloved Virgin. Of course, you know who my beloved virgin is. It is St. John. And then my second book is More Tales for Me and My Beloved Virgin. I'd like to read for you one story first from More Tales for Me and My Beloved Virgin, because it deals with this church in which we now do this video. And the Moravian Church, I'd like to say, has been a great influence to all families on St. John, not only in Carl Bay, but also in Coos Bay. At one time, every person on this side of the island was Moravian. And over at Coos Bay, there was a Lutheran church, because that was the Danish state church. And all the people who were Danes at that time belonged to the Lutheran church. So the Moravian church was the church of the people, the common people. The slaves whom they had nurtured and trained, and had as many, sometimes 2,000 of them, baptized and confirmed in the Moravian faith. Today you have all the religions on St. John that are, I suppose, in the world. And our numbers have gone down to a few hundred. The story that I'm going to tell you about is a confirmation season that we had, and what nearly happened to the confirmation dresses that didn't get here on time. It is called the confirmation dresses that nearly were not. The confirmation dresses that nearly were not. A great church celebration came around the Easter or Lenten season. In general, all the boys and girls around the ages of 12 and 13 who had been received in church at a special service would now reaffirm their baptismal vows made for them in infancy by parents and godparents. This time, they must do it for themselves. At reception, they had been seen, observed, and advised that this was a preparation performance. They had been instructed in the catechism for 1 more year. They should know about their church and its doctrine. They should be given training in Christian living, brotherly love, and sacrificial giving. Each week, it was expected they would give the royal sum of 5 cents to the church to be marked on a 3x5 card on which the names were imprinted. And now the time draws near the Lenten season. The great occasion comes on Palm Sunday. It is early this year. Jane Flounder is in New York City. She has gone there after her marriage. It was expected and promised that she would have the confirmation dresses for her sisters to her mother on time for the occasion. Now it seems as if confirmation dresses must be white. They are to signify purity, chastity, hope, love, and good promise. All the beheaded virgins would, for this one day, be virginal again. Their white dresses proved and showed this. Watch your mouth, John Paul. You can't prove it. Her mama says it is so, so it is so. So what if she delivered 3 months from now? Was a premature birth, that's all. When she gets up and recites her hope, and we sing, just as I am without one plea, in them tears flow, I say, watch your mouth. On Saturday, the week before confirmation, all eyes were on the lookout for George to come to Carolina with the mail. As sure as rain, he shows at 12 o'clock, and everyone gathers to hear his name called out by Miss Flowey. A small assortment of letters today, a number of Walter Field catalogs, and no parcels. With a beating of the heart and a silent prayer, we realize that on Wednesday, when the next mail day comes around, we shall have those dresses. They just have to be here. Wednesday arrives after Thursday, and Wednesday arrives after Tuesday, and before Thursday as customary. George arrives, no confirmation dresses, no parcel for Mother Jane. But I can't understand that child. She says in her letter last month she was sending them dresses. I can't imagine what's happening. Now it's too late to even get them made here. Today is Wednesday, and no boat ain't going to St. Thomas till Friday. That don't give me enough time to get cloth from there, nor Mary enough time to sew them, even if she sew all night. God, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Maybe they'll be here by Saturday, said Cousin Mary from her doorstep. The whole village is in an uproar, for we bear each other's burdens. 'Tis good, serve them right. The Lord high, but he look low. If them dresses don't come, the Lord show he ain't want them come. Aloud they said, well, keep hard. Saturday is sure to be here. Saturday at last. It seemed as if it would never come. Friday took all day and all night to come and go. Everybody knows a jar doesn't get here before noon, but from morning they are on the trough, standing round the breakwater and looking up King Hill. We would think they are on the lookout for Bluebeard's white brothers after he had found the bloodstains on his magic key. What is this? No packages? Hardly any letters? Miss Keaton say rumbled George in his deepest bass, angry and belligerent. The mailboat ain't come from St. Thomas. You can see calm like a pond, and if he ain't coming back and I ain't coming back till Wednesday. I ain't got no parcel. These couple letters over from Wednesday. Poor God. Sometimes I really feel sorry for him. So many prayers to deal with in one moment. How does he know whom to please, whose prayer to grant, and which to acknowledge? With a sinking heart, Mama Flongel calls out to Target, Tag, go get Missy, the old donkey. She tied behind the tamarind tree. Poor Missy. She tied it in rockstone. The boy don't move her lest he get beat. How she gonna make crispy and back before tomorrow? You wait there till the DC gets in, even if it's still 15 o'clock. Bet you didn't know we counted time like the army did. Only thing, we were ahead of them. Target turns off at 3, at least by Sid's watch. Nobody expects him to get back before 12, even if the DC gets in around 6 p.m. from St. Thomas. But with oars and a favorable tide, she could make it by 5. As luck and tide would have it, she arrived. First parcel out of the bag, the confirmation dresses. Here, my boy, you see if you can make it to Carl Bay before it gets too late. Tell your mama good night. Hope the dresses fit right. Don't forget the tarts and cakes all have been made, for there will be a party with much to eat and drink. If those dresses didn't arrive, I wonder what would have become of all those good things. Too late to worry about that now. The dresses are here, and younger brother Target is on his way back to Coral Bay with them. Missy can hardly make it, but he's a light fella, 10 years old, and together they know the way. Miss Keaton had fed him, of course. Nevertheless, to say, everyone had gone to bed at 7:30. They had waited up until the last minute, but couldn't go any longer. The usual hour was 6:30 in short days, soon after the sun had gone behind Border Mountain. No, my son, them door and window got to shut up early. Me ain't taking no chance at all. And then, 'tis Easter. When poor Target and Missy finally reached home, the first cock was crowing. He loosed Missy and flung himself on his cot. The first word out of Miss Flounder's mouth was, "You got the parcel?" "Yes," said Target, as he closed his eyes in sleep. Get up, as Mama shook the sleeping girl. "Get up and put on these dresses, let me see." With sleep half closed in their eyes, the girls got out of their beds and tried on their dresses. Satisfied, Mama retrieved, folded, and plastered them. Then she went to bed. The church bell rang at 8 o'clock. Everyone in the villages, Eden, Palestina, Plantation, Sanders Gut, St. Kwaku, Bordeaux, heard the clarion call to church. At East End, the boats are ready to leave at 9. No one wants to miss the confirmation march as they came into the church. The girls would wear little caps, lacy and round, small and broad on their hair. It was not seemly for females to be in church with their heads bare. The boys would have their white shirts and white twill pants so stiffly starched and creases stuck out. Their black ties were small knotted and tied. I never worried about mine. My Uncle Alfred, who couldn't speak, always tied it. I never learned to tie it until I was in school in St. Thomas and had to do it for myself. The second bell rang at 10 o'clock. The confirmants would have to be there in 15 minutes. Every eye in the village is turned toward the house of Mrs. Flounder. What would the girls be wearing? Did the dresses come? They had seen no unusual activity all morning. As customary, the girls had gone behind the house for their usual ablutions. Target had not been seen. Now had Missy. Did he sleep in Crew's bed? "Well, how is it he isn't here yet? Lou, you see Target?" asked Cousin Mary. "No, ma'am," said Cousin Lou. "I ain't seen a hair or breath of him." The blind door is opening. Here comes the girl. They are dressed to kill. The New York dresses are perfect. They sparkle in the bright sunlight. The girls are radiant. Guess you know whose prayers God answered. A beautiful confirmation. How the tears flowed. How the hopes opened out our hearts and reminded us of our vows and promises. How fitting were the individual texts said over each confirmant. And when Betty Lou said, "Oh Jesus, I have promised to serve thee to the end," how she bawled as if her heart would break. The service ended with a hymn. We welcomed the new members, first the minister, then the helpers, then the church servants, then the choir, and finally the congregation. We shook hands and kissed our own. Funny, we are not a kissing people. We kiss our babies, but seldom do we get kisses as we pass that stage. I usually laugh to hear the boys address their father. "Good afternoon," rumbles from a son's throat. "Good afternoon," rumbles Papa back. If son says, "Good afternoon, Papa," which is seldom, Papa always responds, "Good afternoon." That must be love. The next story deals with the church again. It tells about one of our Easter holidays. It is the Monday after Easter Sunday, and the whole church and all the congregation, all the people around St. John came to our church Sunday school picnic. We used to have classes in church on Sundays, and on this special Monday, we had games and everything else. I was in high school and I came home for this day, and this will tell you some of the things that happened on the way, and it's sort of biographical. some of the things that happened with me as I was growing up. It's a different St. John to the one we have today. It's a St. John where everybody knew everybody else and everybody was interested in everybody else. We are told that the quality of mercy is not for lovers only. It sometimes stretches down to the very lowly, poor, and unhappy individuals who have nowhere to turn for succor. I was a real bad boy. I did unbelievable. It all began when Charles Augustus Lindbergh visited the Virgin Islands. I begged my grandmother with tears in my eyes to let me go to see the plucky, lucky Lindbergh, the hero of the USA. I was 13 and my grandmother had never permitted me to go any farther than the Church of Emmaus. That was a day's journey and back by sailboat or rowboat from my home at East End. This time she said, yes, but be sure to come back. Of course, I promised. Oh, St. Thomas, what stories I had heard. You must bow to the boy. There was another before entering the harbor, with a bell which rang as the waves moved it. St. Rupert's Rock, French War, the West Indian Company, cars, electric lights, ice cream, sugar babies, Mr. Levin and Mr. Trepper, Mr. Leon, my grandfather's friend with whom Aunt Johanna Henry had lived for years and then died suddenly. Visions danced before my eyes. The day we were to leave, I was awake at 4 o'clock in the morning with the first cocks crowing. I had a quick breakfast and was off to St. Thomas. 5 minutes after I had boarded the Adventure, I was already seasick. I crept into my grandfather's lap, and as he sat and stared around Ram's Head, and then with full boom crackling, we leaped and jumped through the waves and the flying fish toward magic St. Thomas. The trip took us 6.5 hours, and then St. Thomas came into view. We saw so many houses, cars, and trucks, horses and donkeys, people running into each other, confusion and noise. There were stores and shops on each side of the street, including a real bakery shop from which we could buy French bread at 2 cents a piece, a roll of long bread, 5 to a roll for 10 cents, a black bread for 10 cents, and shingles at a penny apiece. And Lindbergh, so slim and gentle as he was as he rolled the Spirit of St. Louis up to a halt on the grounds at Mosquito Bay, which were renamed Lindbergh's Bay in his honor. We touched the Spirit of St. Louis, which was roped off after so many of us had touched it. Now to other business. I wanted to stay and go to school. My grandmother had told me that I was too tiny to work gravel like the other boys did. By working gravel, she meant furnishing building material from the beaches in ready sizes for the trades. You shoveled it first into boxes or tubs, placed it in a rowboat, took it to the sloop, emptied it into the bowels of the ship, took the boxes back to the shore, and continued this until the boat reached the place where it looked as if she would sink. Then you sailed to St. Thomas, took out every stone by box or tub, hoisted it to the wharf, and emptied it into a truck or in a pile. You were then paid by the ton. Our boat was 5.5 tons, so Grandfather received $33 for a load. After he had paid $3 to the owner of the beach for the material, and he had deducted $3 for finding, that was the food the crew ate. The balance was divided in two. One half went to the boat, $13.50, and $13.50 was divided among the captain and the 2 crewmen. So each share came to $3.50. The captain was generally given $1.50 from the boat share as his incentive. This is what Grandmother decided to spare me from having to endure. She said, as we were quietly chatting, "You know, you'll have to be a janitor in a school." "A janitor? What's a janitor, Grandmother?" Our school had one teacher, my cousin, and an assistant teacher, my aunt, and I had never heard the word janitor. A janitor is someone who cleans the blackboards and sweeps the floor and opens the windows and closes the school every day. You must study your lessons. "Oh, yes, Grandmother, I will do that. I want to be a janitor." This hit me like a flash after the trip to see Lindbergh. There I was in St. Thomas. A high school was there.
I had passed for the 7th grade for the past 2 years. I had read all the books in the locker after the first year. At 10, I had read my aunt's love story, Thorns and Orange Blossoms, about which they talked and cried. I couldn't see why. I had discovered my aunt's certification as a teacher and knew she had scored 100 in her geography test and 90 in nearly all the others. I had to find a way to go to school and not back to my grandmother as I had promised. What could I do? I asked my grandfather the next day to take me to see Mr. Leon. There I asked her if I could go to school and stay with her before my astonished grandfather could get a word out. She considered for a moment. Yes, if you won't mind the inconvenience. She gave me my own room, and I went to present myself at the high school in February. No, said the principal. We have your record and you are eligible, but the first semester's gone, and we wouldn't know what to do with you. I was determined to get into school. I knew a teacher from my home village. I asked her if I could go to school where she taught. She checked with the principal, and I enrolled for the 3rd year in the 6th grade. But I was in St. Thomas, and near to my goal of going to high school and studying. Getting away from those heavy gravel boxes and lifting was surely enough recompense at this time. Life in school was beautiful. I needn't study anything because I had done this work twice before, so I enjoyed it. Easter vacation came. On Easter Monday in St. John, we always had a gala celebration at the church. Our annual Sunday school picnic started off with the singing of Be Glad in the Lord and Rejoice, a prayer, and the Sunday school march which ended with Hip, hip, hooray. The class that had paid the most money always carried the banner. This was the men's class, the champions. Every year they won. The sailboat races started at 8 a.m. and they did not return until 2 p.m. Our fun began after the march. We went to get our sandwiches and drinks and later our peanuts and sweet bread. Then came the races, egg and spoon, bottle and head. My sister owned that one. She always won. 3-legged races, bag races, threading the needle, running races, obstacle races, eating the bun race, diving for apples, the greased pig, the greased pole for the hand, the addition race, the cricket match, and the children's game. More drinks. What a day. What fun and joy. But here I was in St. Thomas, and every nerve, bone, and sinew said, get to St. John. Those races, those good times. All your friends envious of you. How proud to be living in St. Thomas. Your aunts holding up their heads. Grandmother so happy and glad. I had to get to St. John. Mr. Leon was out. I'd been to the war. Today was Saturday, and the last day to leave so that I could get home in time. Only one boat was left, the Loyal. She belonged to Cruise Bay. William Phoebe told me I could go with him. He was the mate on the Loyal. Please, Mr. Leon, I thought, do come home. I went to Bishop Wise's home. She was not there. I did not know where to find her. I wanted to go home to St. John. I had to get home. Please, God, let me find Mr. Leon. I had to get to the wharf at 5:30. It was 5 p.m. I went back in the street. I looked north, I looked south. It was 5:15 p.m. I had to catch a boat. It was too late to write a note, but I saw Robert, the boy who came daily. Robert, please tell Mr. Leon I've gone home. I couldn't find her, and it's too late to write her a note now. Please, Robert. Sure, I'll tell her, said Robert. Off I went to the Tortola Wharf. The boat was still there. Come aboard, said William. We are ready to leave. Where he going? Who's he? Snarled John Francis, the captain. I have the mail aboard. I ain't carrying a boy I don't know. Suppose he thief it. William calmly said, I know him, and I'll be responsible. So we left at 6 p.m., but my heart was heavy. I had not seen Mr. Leon, and I didn't trust Robert. I thought perhaps I'll write her when I got home. We arrived at Cruise Bay at 2 a.m. I knew no one in Cruise Bay, but my aunt lived at Maho Bay on the point, and I had been there several times, but had never even been to Cruise Bay. I wondered if I could find a house along the dark road with no trace of a light anywhere. There was no moon. With a prayer and good happy thoughts about our Easter Monday celebrations in mind, I started off to find my aunts. The loneliness and dark surely were no companions for a youth who was on a road he had never traveled. Every movement in the near bush brought a lump to my throat, but every step took me nearer to my aunt, who didn't expect me, but who would receive me with loving arms. Sometimes I could not see my hand in front of my face, but I had to go on. In my aunt's house were light, food, and love. A great big rock. I knew where I was. I had been there with my aunt's husband in his boat. This was the rock which takes a bath in the sea every Easter Sunday morning. My goodness, if I had arrived on time, I would have seen it. What a tale I would have had to tell. No one would believe me, even if I swore on a stack of Bibles. It seemed I had been walking all night, but I was not tired, and my prayer was answered. I was not too far from my aunt's house. I had to pass Trunk Bay, where Miss Agnes and Louis lived, and then Peters Bay, where Etlin lived. I had a crush on her, but my special love was her cousin Lola. Oh, what beauty and charm and poise. I could not wait to spend summer at my aunt's house, where I could see her every day. Then I was at Cinnamon Bay, home safe. I knew my way. I've been there many times. The roosters were crowing. It was nearly morning. I could almost see. I had one other village to go. My feet had taken wings. I was at Milan Bay, Maho Bay, and then the point, my aunt's house. I knocked. Who is it? Guy. Guy, come on in. Where are you coming from? I was so happy to be in my aunt's house. I hugged her as if I would never stop. How did you get here? She said. I walked from Cruz Bay. By yourself? Who came with you? In a jiffy, she had me eating as I told her my adventure from St. Thomas to her house. She was astonished. But you have never been on a road? No, but I know how to get to you from any place. And you walked all night? Yes. I had to get to you before you left for church. I went to sleep, and my aunt had me up to go to church at 9 o'clock. We must climb King's Hill from the back, then down the other side, using all the shortcuts and taking Black, the donkey, with us. She rode him, and I held on to his tail. My happiness was unbounded when I saw my two aunts and grandfather in their usual place in church. He sat on the men's side and then on the women's side. And then there was my cousin Ellen coming around the barge wall with my three beautiful cousins. Oh, I loved them. Pauline, Ophelia, and Naomi. I knew where they would be, but I dared not look back as we sang the psalm to its chant tune, God be merciful unto us and bless us. The church looked beautiful, with its festoons of flowers and its green wreaths and coconut palms decorating the doors and windows. It reminded me of the luscious harvest Sundays I had witnessed there. There were bunches of bananas so tall they carried 30 hands, stands of sugarcane reaching into the roofs of the church, mighty yams big enough to tempt Brew Nancy to beguile Brew to come up into boiling them before they were planted. Sweet potatoes as big as coconuts, and coconuts as plentiful as papayas, green and yellow papayas ready to be made into soup, okras, banawis, and pigeon peas, all of Cain's gifts brought to the altar of the Lord, our loveliest and our best. It was not for prizes or blue ribbons either, but for the joy of a good harvest and to show our thanks for all the good blessings that God had provided us. As the service ended, the minister left and the church became a den of activity. Not everyone had a chance to talk about the week's happening and mingle with families and friends, sharing tarts, bread and sugar cakes as well as conversation. It resembled the humming of a great swarm of bees leaving their hives. One day it got so high and loud that the minister returned from his palatial mission house to remind us that we were still in God's house and not the marketplace. My cousins and I were chatting in back of the belfry or back of the mission house under the guinea tree in the shadow of both. Cool, frequent breezes blew, and the spring flowers were in full bloom. It is small wonder that Ponce de Leon gave Florida such an appropriate name. I went home to my grandmother with my aunts and grandfather. I was too happy to remember Miss de Leon, and the next day was our Easter Monday. I had traveled the length of St. John by night and day and arrived at East End, the farthest point. We went there in my grandfather's boat. The next morning, Easter Monday, was a great day. 6 sailboats left our harbor at East End. The India, small and swift, the Mayflower, belonging to the minister, the Adventure, my grandfather's, the Vindictive, my godfather's, the Golden Law, the Golden Dawn, belonging to my friend, and the Lily, Captain Sewer's speedboat. already sure to win the races. We arrived in time for Sunday school march and the service in church, received the badges which allowed us free entry to all treats, and got started with our great day. I was afire with courage and ambition. I won the foot race and the obstacle race, and my friend Grio and I won the three-legged race. I also won the addition race. My Aunt Inga, the teacher, was just about to enter it when I came up. She gave me her pencil, and I didn't have one. All the teachers were represented and were ready to begin. I added the columns in no time flat, and I presented my answer. "First prize, Guy Benjamin," said the minister. No one could believe it. With all the teachers competing, how could he win? Now you see why I had to come home. All those prizes. My greatest moment was when we went up to the churchyard to get our awards. It seemed as though the minister would never stop saying, "Guy Benjamin, first prize." A happy but tired boy went home to his grandmother with his prizes. She smiled but said nothing as I related how I had jumped under the sail and through the barrel hoop, how Gray had eaten the sweetbread so fast without choking, and how we had laughed when the Grace pole refused to give up the hand until Foreman had climbed over everybody and gotten to the top. Oh, the joys of Easter Monday and the beauty of our Moravian Church for bringing us such good times. We began to plan for next year again as soon as it was over. But everything good comes to an end. The fishing, swimming, ball games, the coal pit, and the hide and seek in the grass. My 2 weeks flew on wings, and it was time to go back to St. Thomas's School and to Miss DeLeon. This was the first time I had thought about her. I don't think I had even told grandmother the conditions under which I'd left. With my grandfather, I presented myself to Miss DeLeon. "You may take him back to St. John with you. I'll have no runaway in my house. In fact, I've taken Robert in his place, and that is final." Poor grandfather. What to do with his runaway grandson? How could he take him back to St. John? He tried his son. "Oh no, I can't keep him with me." He tried Miss Graham Hanson. "I would, but I have no room." One last try. As a young boy, he had lived with the Bryans. Perhaps they would have room and keep me. So we trudged up the street. I saw my grandfather's eye glisten as he said a silent prayer, and we went to the Bryan Benjamin's home. I immediately fell in love with Miss Flowery, the mother and the family of Lillian, Arthur, Almeid, Aubrey, and Ilva. It was a nice place. Please God, let her say yes. She did not say no. She said, "Come back this afternoon after Amos comes from work, and we'll let you know." By early evening we arrived, and Mr. Benjamin said a magic word, and all our prayers were answered. I was back in school and had 5 wonderful companions with whom to live. The most important decision, which was to influence the course of my life and that of many other individuals, was made by 2 Christian brethren who took an unknown youth into their home on faith and love alone, with no promise of payment, only the gratitude of my family and the thanks of a stripling who promised to help in any way he could to pay for his keep. Many were the days that I missed the love of my grandmother and aunts, and secretly rebelled at my ambition to become a janitor, if it meant long separations, 6 years of study, and often heartaches. Not every day was joyous either. I remember the day I cooked 6.5 pounds of soup. Of all the days, it was Arthur's and Lillian's confirmation. I should have boiled a leg of mutton, removed it from the stock, and used the stock to make soup. That day I cried. I'd goofed and disappointed my benefactors. I received my scolding, and everyone was sorry for me since it was not willfully done. The things I learned to do in a family where I was accepted more as a son than as an outsider were myriad. I could clean a floor, bake bread, cook a dinner, set the table, shop, wash and iron my clothing, keep up my marks in school, speak correct grammar, practice on the piano, learn acceptable table manners, read decent literature, go to the Lutheran and Moravian church, have my friends in for bridge games, plan a meal, wash the dishes, pots and pans, plant a flower garden, and go to be a printer's devil at the mail notes for 50 cents a week spending money. How my poor aunts managed to keep me in shoes and sneakers was a miracle. But every boat that came from St. John while I went through 7th to 12th grade would have a note, a cake, a loaf of bread, fried fish, some guineps, seaside grapes, sugar apples, and as much as 10 cents or as little as 3 cents. But the day finally arrived. I deserve no credit for this. It all goes to Mr. Leon, Mr. and Mrs. Amos Benjamin and family, my grandfather, my grandmother, and my loving and blessed aunts, who took the place of my mother who died young. Along the way were many friends, my godmother, Rosalind, and her daughter Evangeline, Mrs. Anita Roberts, my first outside friend, Mrs. Anna Wheatley and family, and my many friends in St. Thomas who adopted me. There were my friend Mui, who dived in the harbor and made enough money for us to go to the dances. My friend Toby Slack and Edward Harley, baseball greats, and my wonderful teachers in Charlotte Marley High School who were dedicated and inspired. They gave us a foundation which stood us through college and back to teach. Neither my grandmother, my grandfather, nor my aunts survived to see their dream realized. But one day I hope to say to grandmother, Mama, I did not get to be a janitor. I became the superintendent of schools, and they even named the school after me. I'll see her quiet smile and a twinkle in her eye, for she would know that she had planted the acorn that had grown into an oak.